Hey guys, Darren here. Welcome to Mayhem Country Living and Mayhem Preparedness. I want to go over some stuff with you today about bartering. Now I know some of you are thinking, well, we got to get everything taken care of. We got to get our beans and our bullets taken care of before we think about what we need to do to have to swap or trade with people. That's fantastic. Good for you. I understand how you would feel that way. But there comes a time when you realize that you will need to duplicate everything that you have in your life twice over to have everything you will need as far as preparedness goes. That is where community comes into place, and being able to swap and trade with community, with people, your neighbors, someone who is up the road from you, someone you know a little bit through a friend of a friend. It might be someone that you may not even know very well. If that's the case, then you need to take a lot of precautions. The economy and the political environment has made things to where preparedness is again high on people's list. That is my nice way of saying Biden is now in the White House. And should you start laying aside extras? Absolutely. If you hadn't, when's the best time to start? Now. It really is. But bartering, it basically depends on what you need. Let's look at these two silver half dollars. 1940s, got a little bit of wear on it. Numismatically, don't even know the value, but this is silver. You could trade these for bullets, Hornady 45 ACP. Not bad, if that's what you needed. Can't eat silver. Can't eat bullets. It might be that seeds are going to be more valuable to you than 2 pieces of silver, or 2 pieces of silver and a box full of 45 hollow points. It just depends. It could be that you have a sick child, an infant, who really needs formula. Maybe this is the difference between life and death for an infant, for a small child, someone in your community, in your people, in your group. Then this is absolutely much more valuable than enough seeds to plant a garden. Basically, what I'm saying is it's going to depend on your need. If you're not sick, if you don't have an infection, then you really don't need the Z-Pack. Although a box full of Z-Pack is really good to have to barter with. Again, let's look at these things. Everyone has their value, and in certain situations, each one is worth all of the others put together. So a dozen eggs came from our chickens. Dozen eggs, okay. Well, 2 adults, you could eat 6 eggs and get by each. This would feed you for 2 days if you were just by yourself. These dozen eggs. These eggs are fertilized. Now, that's a whole different ball game. So perhaps these eggs are more valuable than all of these. Double the amount of all of these, because with this, I could ultimately feed 50 people. It would take time and it would be involved, but say you had 2 roosters, 10 hens, that's a fantastic ratio. This right here could grow into a flock of hundreds of birds. Over time, that can provide you with meat as well as eggs. So it's really good. Now, you couldn't keep them all, I guess. Perhaps the canning jars and the jarring equipment, lime or salt, spices even, are a big thing. It just depends on what it is that you need. Now, obviously, when you sit down or you begin to talk to someone, you certainly wouldn't lay all these out and say, here's everything I got, and you know, let me know if there's something like this, if this works for you, if this works for you. And you know, while you're doing all this and you lay everything out in front of them, you might as well show them everything you have in your pocket as well, because it's a good way to get conked in the head. We're not talking about in our steward situations. We're also talking about regular, everyday bartering at the corner, neighborhood store, or at the local farmer's market. All of these have their own value in their own place in their own time. If you know somebody who shoots 45 and who, because of the bullet crunch, you know these have tripled in value. Could I get that for them? Absolutely, if I wanted to, but I don't want to. Silver, again, silver has gone up in value. Z-Pack, with all the COVID, say you needed a Z-Pack and you needed hydrochloroquine, I could trade you for that. It all depends on what you need, but again, you are not going to be taking all of this stuff and set it out. That is a good way to end up naked and dead somewhere. You would start out with one thing that you had to trade. Silver is a good medium of exchange, and you would definitely not lay out all the coins, change, money that you had. And if you had silver, you could go so far as to cut one of these in half, and you could break it down into smaller denominations. That is what has been done throughout history with coins, coins that have value. These are things that can really help you. Seeds, I can grow a garden, and I could have my chickens, and I could take care of a whole lot of people just with these. But again, it's going to depend on what you have and what you need and what you're willing to pay for it. How much is it worth? It just depends on what you're willing to pay. More to come. Okay guys, now we're back. What could you do? You could, let's say you needed some canning lids, because these actually have been in short supply. Rings and lids have been in very short supply, and if you can find them, you can only get them for like $18 or so for a pack, one pack, off of Amazon. I trade my eggs to someone locally who owns a store and who has a lot of these. So I trade them a dozen of my eggs for one of these. This is what happens in real life. This is what I do. So now, over the course of 2 weeks, I probably have about 10 dozen of these set aside for when canning season begins in the fall. That is just a really good example of what we do and what we have. If I needed to get ammunition, I could go to a place and I could exchange a form of currency. Again, this is another fantastic example. Let's consider this as just money and not silver. They'll say that's $50. Well, here is $50 of hard currency or fiat currency, US dollars. That is how barter works. Now, neighborhood communities, farmers markets, feedlots, stuff like that, should something happen, they're going to become hubs of commerce. It is just the ultimate regression in form of agorism. Agora is Greek, and that word simply meant market. And so you would take what you had to the market, a dozen eggs, or seeds, or silver, currency of whatever country, the currency of the day, and you would buy vegetables or meat or whatever it is you needed. Perhaps it was a service. Perhaps you needed to buy wine or alcohol or some way to clean whatever it was. This is what it can go back to, and that was a big form of barter. Currency, hard currency, was scarce. But I could trade the eggs for the bullets, or I could trade eggs to someone to sharpen my axe, or clean a piece of equipment that I did not know how to make work. Perhaps it was a chainsaw that I was using. Perhaps I had a gallon of gasoline that was still useful, and I could trade a gallon of gasoline for all of this, perhaps. Maybe I couldn't. Maybe I had some solar chargers or some sort of pieces of solar equipment or batteries or spices, something like that. But again, you would not pour everything out and say, this is everything I have, pick what you need, and while you're at it, why don't you just shoot me? That's not what you do. That's not what you would do. And most of you guys know this, and gals. You're very selective. You're very slow when you lay out what you have. And you do not lay out everything you have. This is just another game of cards. That's all it is. And you don't show your hand until you absolutely have to. And you don't want to come out winning. You want them to feel like they did well, and you want to feel like you did well also, because that way nobody gets killed. Never go alone. Never go unarmed. If you go into a place to do business that you have not been before, it would be a good idea to travel with another person, and then I would have a third person who would wait outside of whatever place you were, and they would just sit there and wait and watch. And you would go in and trade and do your trading with whomever, and you would have your other person there with you, armed, of course, and you would conduct your trading, and you would either go get to your vehicles or something like that, and then you would stop and you would pick up that third person, because they would be watching to see who was coming and what was happening behind you. Overwatch is what it is. A lot of you people who are have been in the military can talk about it much better than I can, and I will not pretend to know more about it than you guys do. But be safe, be smart, be alert. Don't say, hey, I got everything here, and while you're at it, oh, here's my wallet, and you could take that too. That's not how you do it. You want to get a reasonable price. You don't want to cheat anyone. You want to get a reasonable price when you're doing this bartering. Because again, I want you to leave feeling like you did well. And in turn, I'm going to feel like I got what I needed. And we both go our separate ways. Perhaps we have begun to build a business relationship. In whatever form. The eggs and the rings and lids are a really good example. That's true. That is what I do, and I will probably continue to do that. And the nice thing about it, who knows about this other than me and this person, and the fact that I mention it. It's a negligible amount, There's very little tax that would have been paid. And if someone says, well, you know, you should pay your fair share, there you go. You pay whatever tax is. In a place where you would go to meet, there might be a fee, a stall fee, a entrance fee, which is pretty much a tax for going in. You don't try to get around it. You don't try to nickel and dime. You pay your share and you go inside and you conduct your business. You're upright, upstanding, and then you leave. You leave with a person you came with, and you stop and pick up your third person, your overwatch, and you go back to your community and you implement whatever you have. You use whatever you went there for. That is how it should work. That is how it could work. Could it work different? Could it be worse? Oh, absolutely. It could be much worse. But a barter is an exchange of goods or services for other goods and services, or could be intellectual knowledge. I don't know how to build a fence that can keep my cows in. You do. You could trade that knowledge to me, and I'll give you a dozen eggs. This is how barter is. This is how it works. This is not like the crazy run and gun scenarios that you see or hear about it. This is not the sexy stuff. This is just what feeds you and keeps you safe at night. Alright guys, this could be used 100 different ways. This could be used for website building and management and development, and I can trade you X amount of silver or cryptocurrency to build my website. And we could do that, we could barter that way. And it again is just agorism. Barter is agorism, kind of a roundabout. We've been doing this for thousands of years, probably tens of thousands of years. And it may be that this is what we go back to. The nice thing about this transaction is just between me and you. Alright guys, we're going to wrap it up. This is the tip of the iceberg. This is just a brief overview. If you have any questions or comments, put them down below. If you like what we're doing, take a look at us. Consider supporting us on Patreon as well. Mayhem Country Living on Patreon. Take care of you people, guys.